Hey, my voice is still kind of fucked up, but whatever. I think maybe I'll just be froggy all summer. But we're working on a new drawing. Now, this one is pretty different, not so much because of the subject, but I'm doing it on watercolor paper. I just picked up a cheapo, this is the shitty Artist's Loft watercolor paper, and I am not a watercolor artist, meaning I don't know what I'm doing. So that's why I just got some cheap paper to play around with. They did have some of the nicer, expensive pads of watercolor at my art store, but I just couldn't justify paying $80 for 20 sheets of paper when I really just need to get comfortable playing with watercolors to begin with. So there's definitely a difference in quality of art tools that you use, but definitely in the beginning sometimes it's worth just getting something kind of cheapo, especially with paper, until you kind of get comfortable using the paper, in my experience, and then invest in something more expensive once you're done with all the throwaway practice shit that you do. A lot of it's just figuring out technique, getting comfortable with using the medium and so on. So what I did here, I just sketched out what I want to do, and like I said, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just trying stuff. And I like this drawing a lot, but I might ruin it in the process, and that's kind of, you have to be okay with that. You just have got to be okay with potentially fucking everything up when you're doing art. Yeah, unless you're a natural talent and then everything just comes out rainbows and unicorns and whatever, and I'm not that with art. But yeah, I really like this sketch, and I might ruin it, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my micron pens and outline it first how I want, and then I'm going to use watercolor for coloring and just see how it turns out. We'll go from there. I'm not going to do a whole lot of the shading with pens like I usually do. I'm going to use the watercolor for most of that. At least I believe so. And let's see if I completely screw it up. Sometimes when I've done that, when I've messed up a piece of art, I'll just throw it in a drawer somewhere for like a year and come back and do something else with it. And I'll make something out of it later on that I really like. And sometimes I'll just repurpose it, like I'll cut shit out and glue it onto something else or something along those lines. But I usually hang on to most of my stuff. It's pretty easy to do. It doesn't take up a lot of space. These little like pads of paper and stuff around. It's not like having a bunch of canvases. So I obviously don't have a lot of space in my ambulance for canvases if I don't like what I do. But paper is pretty easy. So that's my one tip for today, is as somebody who's not naturally talented with art, don't be afraid to fuck it up. Actually, I have this kind of interesting story. There was a time I would... Sorry, I heard somebody outside. I would go sit at Starbucks and just do drawings sometimes. And this was a couple years ago. I was at this one Starbucks outside of Portland, just, you know, working on this thing. I think I'd been working on it for about an hour. And this older guy comes in, and he sat down at the table, the group table that I was at, and he was like being super, super extra careful not to bump the table or make any movement on it and stuff like that. And there really weren't a lot of people in there anyways. And he mentioned something to me. He's like, "Oh, I just really want to be careful. I don't, bump it. I don't want to ruin what you're doing." And just off the cuff, I said, "Well, you can't ruin it. Like if I make a mistake, it was a mistake meant to be, and like that's just the nature of art, is no matter what you're doing, you're always risking ruining it with that next step that you decide to do." And he didn't quite understand it, but that's just kind of been my approach with art, is you have to be willing to fuck it up with whatever the next decision is that you make to do with it. And there's very rarely a stage where you love, or at least for me, where I love exactly what I'm doing. Most of the time when I'm working on a piece, the whole time I'm just going, this is shit, this is shit, this is terrible, this is awful, like, oh my god. this is the worst thing I've ever done on the planet. And then all of a sudden at the end, like with the last couple little marks, I'd be like, oh, you know, actually, I think I kind of made something out of that. I think that's pretty decent. And one of my favorite professors in college ever, he would remark that a lot of times you never know, you don't, like it's not like you start something and all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's finished. You just get to a place where you kind of decide, I think I'm done working on it. And sometimes you're done working on it forever, and sometimes you're just done working on it for now. And maybe you'll come back to it later, maybe not. But that's something I've experienced a lot of, is I get to a place where I'm like, I'm done for now. It's good enough for right now. Or I don't really know what else I want to do with it just yet, and I'll figure it out. But yeah, I've been full in on the art stuff lately, which is good. I know a lot of people, I'm going to post this to my YouTube too. A lot of people on my YouTube follow me not for art stuff, but for my raw carnivore stuff. And I haven't been posting a lot of videos for that. I'll give you like a super brief little update. If you're not here for me talking about raw meat, then you can click off now. I'm done talking about the art. But I haven't been posting a lot with the raw carnivore stuff, not because I'm not doing raw carnivore, but because I'm having a whole bunch of weird, random health stuff with my mercury poisoning that it just makes it really difficult with meals and stuff. A lot of times when I'm eating, I'll have an allergic reaction where all of a sudden I break out in hives all over. That's been pretty much every meal for the past week. And it's a really pretty exhausting experience, and I don't feel terribly great when I'm eating anyways, because like, when every time you eat you have some sort of allergic reaction, it's not life-threatening, it's just really annoying and it drains my energy. When that happens every time you eat, you get pretty disgusted about eating anything. Like most of the time I'm just like, I just don't want to eat. Do I have to eat today? Fuck, I guess I better eat. So I'm not starving myself, I am making sure I eat, but pretty much everything I eat gives me an allergic reaction right now. So I'm sure that this will pass at some point. Most of the weird things that come up, like they come up for a couple of days or a week or two, and then they go away and something else comes up. I'm not really sure why or what causes it, but it's just where I'm at right now. And all of that said, like, I'm not trying to complain or, oh, poor me. If you get to know me, you'll know that my biggest, like, is any kind of pity. Like, as soon as I think somebody might be pitying me, oh, that's it. Like, fucking gloves off. We're fighting. Like, do not pity me. This isn't me trying to complain or anything like that, but mostly I think it's really good for people to talk openly about if something's going on. Like, I've gained so much insight and knowledge about my own journey in life by hearing other people's stories. And if they never talked or shared them, I wouldn't have even a fraction of the information to fall back on that I do now. So I found it actually really interesting, because as soon as I found out I have mercury poisoning, I started talking to people about it. I found out all these other people I know in just my regular day-to-day have also dealt with some sort of issues with mercury, with their fillings and so on. And I would have never discovered that if I hadn't been talking about my own experience. So I think that's really fascinating and kind of helpful in different ways. But yeah, so right now, hives pretty much every day. It always starts with my ears. My ears will get really hot and bright red, and then it works its way down from there. And most of it's like upper body, and I get really tired afterwards. So I'll usually take like a 2 or 3 hour nap, sometimes a 4 or 5 hour nap where I'm just dead to the world, and then get up and rally and try to, salvage whatever I can for the rest of the day. I have an appointment with my dentist to do the filling replacement in July, end of July. It's going to take about a week that I'll be going through that process. And then once that's done, I'll be able to start doing chelation, and I'm going to be following the Cutler program, which is a very specific approach. It does not use any herbal chelators like cilantro or anything like that. In fact, it strongly tells you not to use those because it can make things way worse and cause permanent damage. So if you're interested in anything about Mercury or on your own Mercury journey and you haven't heard about the color protocol, check into that. There's a Facebook group related to it as well, and he's got some books. He's passed away now, but he was a doctor that focused on mercury detox and yada 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 yada. Other than that, yeah, every day is something different, so I just take it day by day. Some days I have a bunch of energy and I start feeling like, oh my gosh, I have like a glimpse of who I used to be. And then most days I just feel like I'm about 90 or 100 years old with varying health ailments. Like, oh, like this hurts or that, arthritis, this or whatever, or no energy, or I can't think and can't remember anything. So it varies, but I think the biggest thing through anything like this is, because I've been dealing with chronic health issues pretty much absolutely my entire adult life, even into my teens. And it's all about mindset. You got to find things to laugh at. You have to find the good stuff. If you are always focused on the bad, and it's fine to acknowledge the bad stuff that comes up, but also try to find the silver lining in every single thing. So like, I actually look at this whole situation of mercury poisoning as like the best thing that's ever happened. That's such a weird thing to say, but I'm actually really, really grateful for it because I've been dealing with chronic health issues since I was about 7. Something or other super fucking strange has been going on with my health, and it always changes. And I'll think I have one thing solved and then something else will come up. And the mercury thing, knock on wood, but as far as timeline with getting dental work, mercury fillings goes, lines up perfectly with all of these major instances of random health problems. So it's kind of filled in some gaps. I'm a little bit hopeful that once I start going through chelation, I might actually be able to resolve some of the other long-standing health things that have been going on, that it was just kind of like, oh, I'm just broken, or I'm sensitive. I don't even, like, none of those even feel like valid explanations for what I've gone through in my life. Like, oh, I just have a sensitive body. What a bunch of fucking bullshit. Like, there's always a cause. I'm very much a problem-solving mindset. So I'm like, no, that, like, just saying, oh, it just is that way. No, that's basically just saying it is just that way because I have such limited understanding that I couldn't possibly fathom there might actually be a real cause behind it. And I can't accept that. I just can't. Oh, Dora's not happy about something. She's up front growling. Anyways, I'm gonna record just inking this, and just wanted to do a quick little intro about that before and catch up. I had a couple people message me lately just kind of checking in because they hadn't heard me post anything lately, and I do apologize. A lot of times it's when you don't feel good most of the time, most days, all the time, when you do feel a little bit good, you're so far behind on everything, you're just constantly playing catch up, like a mad rush. And a lot of times my catch up looks like, well, I guess I'll finally take myself to the gym today because I feel like I need to be able to move my body. That's one thing I absolutely know for me, I need to be able to do to take care of myself, especially my mental health, is I got to get in that gym. I have to do something difficult and challenging in the gym as often as possible. And if I don't, like, everything else just feels like total failure. So a lot of times my catch up looks like that, or just, oh, I balanced my checkbook this week, like just super simple basic things that most people are like, oh, it took me like 5 minutes to do that, but it takes me all day because my brain isn't working that day, or whatever. So instead of posting a lot of videos on YouTube or on my other social media, I've been just playing a lot of catch up and focusing on good things like my art and things like that. So If you don't hear from me as often for a little while, just assume that's probably why. I'm going to try to get back to posting my raw carnivore stuff as soon as I can. And yeah, I hope you find some of the art stuff entertaining or enjoyable. I know a lot of the stuff I do is weird and quirky. It's because I'm weird and quirky, and if you're waiting for me to apologize for that, I'm not going to. I really love it. I am so glad I'm not normal. Anyways, that's all I've got. I hope you enjoy my next little video on inking this.